there, ref. That's he got the ball. Yes, good morning, Spurs fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys Dave, Jack, Steve, and Dermo this morning as we build up to what is an absolute huge game for Tottenham Hotspur. This game and the game against Palace next week are two must-win games, especially before the European tie of Atletico Madrid, which is slapped in between Liverpool and then also after Forest. So if we want to be able to prioritise that and to be able to sort of go after it, we really do need to put points on the board today, and a win today will also, I think, move us 7 points away from that relegation zone. So it is absolutely important, and this is a winnable game. I know last week a lot of people were maybe heading into it, including myself, with a bit of optimism into the North London derby, maybe excited to see what a new manager could bring. Could he bring a new manager bounce? Certainly didn't bring that, so there was a lot riding on today's game. No Soren. Soren is currently smoking meat for a big family barbecue. And also no Martin with us again. Martin is still in hospital, which is sad to hear. And we send our best wishes out to you, Martin, if you are listening. Let's just go around the panel quickly, see how everybody is, and then let's crack on. Jacko, good morning to you, sir. How are you keeping?
Good morning, good evening, whatever time it is that I'm waking up for. Just another massive game. And this one, I think we're all feeling more optimistic for, whereas I think we had to really get up for the last game because it's a derby, whereas this one, yes, technically London derby, but more a game that feels winnable, will be still a very tough challenge. Don't get me wrong, Fulham are a good side and secretly a good one, but at the same time, Igor Tudor's had another week to work with the players, and we'll be discussing all of that and just the opportunity here to give ourselves a good cushion here, because West Ham also, of course, dropping points against Liverpool has really helped us. And you never know, maybe even Forest might end up dropping points as well. So massive, massive opportunity here. And we ascend into the Lions' cottage, the Lions' den today.
Yeah, and we'll do that via boat. Today's the day. Fulham away is where people usually rock up by boat, have a few drinks and stuff. So I've no doubt the away fans are certainly going to be up for it. A good day for them. Let's just hope we see it matched on the pitch. Dermo, how are you keeping, sir? Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. I want to send my best wishes to Martin as well. I hope you have a speedy recovery, sir, and I hope nothing too serious. But yeah, I'm fine. Looking forward to the game today. It's a massive game, isn't it?
Yeah,
an absolute massive game. It's a massive week for Tottenham. 3 games in 7 days. We've got to pick something up, haven't we? If we don't, then we could be in serious problems. But look, 3 points today, I think that sort of slightly eases the pressure on us. And then we're going to Palace, get 3 points there. And I think you're going to Liverpool out with 6 points on the board. I think a little bit more comfortable to think, okay, if we can get a point here, then 7 points out of 9. I think anyone would have taken that at the start of the week. So I think that's the bare minimum we have to get.
But to your point, Dermo, we're actually playing Thursday night against Palace, and then we don't play on the weekend, and we're not playing then until Atletico Madrid. So not too bad. 5-day break before then. Thursday night is a bit.
We're not playing Sunday against Liverpool. No. We're not away to Liverpool.
No, it says here Liverpool. The Liverpool game is on the 15th of March. It's 2 weeks away.
Oh, okay, then that's fine then. That's it. Get 6 points in a 5-day break.
Yeah, today, Thursday, and the weekend off. I mean, my missus would be delighted to hear that. I can tell you that. She'll be lining up some jobs for me to do. Let's just pretend we've got a game this weekend. We'll find an under-21 game or something to sit down and watch. Yeah. Stevie, fresh back from your trip over to the capital, overseas Spurs for the North London derby. How are you keeping, sir?
I'm doing well, and I want to thank you two for having me on so quickly. And I do appreciate it. A quick shout out to Martin as well too. Hopefully you get better sooner rather than later. Hopefully it's nothing serious, and you'll be back on your feet as quick as possible. But I will say that I am optimistic for this match. Just like I was going into the North London derby as well, too. It just seems like it's a little bit of a different feel than what we saw under Thomas Frank. And I will say that, when it comes to recent history with this fixture, this road fixture, I think the last time Spurs won at Craven Cottage was 2023. And I think Harry Kane scored the winner. But prior to that, Spurs had won 7 consecutive at Craven Cottage between 2010, 2020, 23. So from that standpoint, recent history would suggest that this is a match where Spurs actually travel well. What does that have to do with today? Absolutely nothing. But what I will say is that this is a massive fixture, something that, when you look at these 2 fixtures between Fulham and Crystal Palace, a minimum of 4 points. has to be secured, if not 6. And I think that, when we consider that we get Porro and Danso back today as well, too, which is going to be a massive boost, especially on that right side. Me personally, I don't think any excuse. Yeah, I don't think there should be any excuse for this team not to go to Craven Cottage and at least get a point out of this one, if not 3.
Well, interestingly, it does seem that Tudor ran the legs off them this week in terms of training, made them do a lot of running without the ball and stuff, and hopefully we see that reflected on the pitch, because I don't know if Spurs fans know this, but a lot of our games this season, we've actually been outrun. Every team has nearly covered more distance than us, and it's correlating in results. And you look at the likes of Gallagher and stuff in midfield, and our squad in general, we don't look as fit as other squads, which is maybe a concern to me. But look, let's welcome some people in at home, and then let's crack on. We've got Paddy Higgins just dropped in for stuff to get done before kickoff, back for the match. Come on, you Spurs. Well, look, really appreciate that, Paddy. You go and do what you need to do, and we'll see you back here for kickoff, sir. We've also got Brett in the house. Good to see you, Mr. Lockhead. Evening, lads. Tossing up whether to get up and watch, as we haven't seen 3 points since December. Come on, you Spurs. Look, regardless of what we go through, we got to get up and for every single game, and get, at least if we turn up as fans, then we can't be questioned, by anyone else with inside the club, Brett, is what I would say. So do get up and watch the game, my man. We've got Martin in the house. Big up, Martin. Good to see you, sir. Good morning. Hopefully you're keeping well. It says, good morning today. There's no excuses. We must give it full commitment and a determination to win. The style doesn't matter so much. This is about the players having the right mindset.
Good point.
Absolutely spot on. And at the end of the day, if the players aren't up for it, it doesn't matter who's in the dugout. And that's a concern, that no matter who's in the dugout, they don't seem to be able to twist or turn that mentality. You would hope at some point the sort of survival instinct will kick in and, get the squad together. But like I said, a question all week, Martin. What's that one figure within the camp that you look at that's going to galvanize this squad, that's going to bring everybody together? I don't think we have it personally. People can say Romero, he hates the ownership. There's no incentive there for him to sort of, stand up and fight for them and stuff. So we'll wait and see, Martin. Today's a big game in that regard. We've also got John in the house. Big up, Mr. Stokes. Morning, Dave, Jack, Stevie, Dermot. Up the Spurs. Good to see you. You on the road today, or are you at home chilling out in front of the couch watching the game? Do let us know, John. Good to see you. Daddy Bibby, morning, lads. Big game today. Hope the boys are up for it. Come on, you Spurs. Well, that is the big hope. Mr. Bibby, we've got William Webb. Good morning. Good to see you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well. How is life over the other side of the world? Do let me know. Big up, guys. I'm going for a lose. Every time I tip us to win, we lose. Reverse psychology. I mean, I think that's what a lot of us are getting into.
We're going crazy.
Now, Webb. Yeah, it seems like we're going star crazy. Iceman, big up Dave, Jack, Steve, Dermo, and everyone in the chat today. It's a massive day. Play with heart and passion, aggression, prove what it means to wear that jersey. Absolutely spot on. It's a London derby at the end of the day, so you'd hope we'd see some of that. Niall O'Connor says, big up, lads. Great panel. Let's get the points on the board. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. We've also got Simon Cohen in the house. Morning, boys. Good to see you. Hopefully you and the family are keeping well, Simon. We've got J-Mac. Big up, David, lad. Jacko, Steve, and Dermo. Come on, you Spurs. Good morning, J-Mac. Great to see you, sir. We've also got Tartan Spurs all the way in from Scotland. Good to see you. Hope all is well. All is keeping well here, my man. How are you keeping? Do let us know. Thomas, great to see you. He says, good evening, everyone supporting Spurs. We are going to lose 3-1 today. I see there's a lot of, not a lot of confidence within Spurs fans today, which I don't blame you. It has sort of been beaten out of us this season, but let's hope we can stand up and be counted today. John has gone with a lineup of Vicario, Van de Ven, Dragusin, and Danzo, Sousa, Gallagher, Xavi, Paulinho, Porro, Williams, Barnett, and Solanke. No Colin Moani off his goal in the North London derby, John. Let me know why. Ian Harding, good to see you. Morning, lads. Big day ahead. Let's get behind the boys today. Absolutely spot on. Look, we get behind them every week, don't we? Every single game, but they just let us down. So hopefully they actually turn up and don't let us down today, my man. Make sure I'm not missing anyone. Good to see Adrian Schrock in the house. Good to see you, Adrian. You're not on that boat to the Fulham game today. Not out there partying. Let me know. We've got Roughneck in the house. Dermot, give us a wave. He wants to know away from Dermo. We've got a big fan in there, Dermo. Faz 4-0 Spurs. Good to see you. Big up my favorite channel, 4-0 Spurs. Never in doubt. I'd snap your hand off. If we got that today, I probably wouldn't sleep for a few days. We've got Mash in the house. We're just going to call you go on, Jack.
Shraja, maybe. Mahai. Cool name.
We'll give that a go.
Give it a crack.
Form favours Fulham slightly. Squad level, Spurs can match Fulham, maybe even better then. So therefore, win depends a lot on Tudor's tactics and not stretching the game. Well, look, let's wait and see. Tudor does seem like he wants to play a one way, which is maybe a bit more aggressive. So let's wait and see what happens there. Good to see JD. Fulham is an experienced group with a manager that knows what he's doing. This will not be an easy game by any stretch of the imagine. It won't be easy. But look, even when we had good teams going to Craven Cottage, we've struggled largely. I think we haven't won there in the last 3 years. You know, they've got a dearth of Premier League experience within that squad, and they've got a manager who knows how to get the best out of them. So it is going to be a tough day for sure. Also, big up Lee Moody. Good to see you bricking it today. But come on, you Spurs. I'm telling you, if we don't win one of these next 2 games, Fulham or Palace, we are going down. So I need to see something today. But Jacko, let's kick straight off into it. I mean, the 4-1 defeat to Arsenal was a sobering welcome to Tottenham for Igor Tudor, and it has left us in 16th place, just 4 points above the relegation zone. The manner of the collapse, conceding 3 unanswered goals in the second half, felt like a continuation of the same fragility sort of that we saw under Thomas Frank. Did that performance confirm your worst fears about a genuine relegation battle, or are you reserving your final judgment to see how we sort of play today against Fulham, given Tudor was only in the building for a few days for that North London derby?
I mean, the start that he had was not encouraging. It felt like it was still Thomas Frank in charge, to be perfectly honest. Like, it was very negative. Some people are trying to see some of the differences between that approach and the way that we played versus how it would have been under Thomas Frank. To be honest, I didn't see many differences. It felt like a very negative setup from the get-go, with Xavi Simons more or less playing up top. He could have gone like any other manager. He didn't have a ton of options available to him, but I felt like he could have gone with Matisse Tell and maybe more of an attack mindset with maybe some more forwards in the game. It just wasn't a good start. At the same time, going into that game, maybe there was some things we didn't know about. Clearly, Dominic Solanke wasn't available, as much as, you know, we all were saying it's a sore throat. How could he not be available? I guess he wasn't. Maybe he had to look at the game a little bit differently all of a sudden. It just wasn't a good start, but we can only read it so much into it, I feel like, where you have to take some takeaways from it, and there were really none. It was pretty much all negatives, but I think this is really truly the game that we can actually probably judge Tudor and also these players more by. This is a far more winnable game. That being said, I think, like I said before, it's a very difficult game, but I think it is a more winnable game. And also, I mean, the relegation threat is so real now. Like, I think it is painstakingly in front of them. It's staring them right in the face. If we don't see any reaction from them today, if we don't see any sort of semblance of a fight or semblance of an idea, cohesion from them, I think we could really start to question these players. And I think Igor Tudor, we would really be able to tell, you know, he's got, you know, a difficult task ahead of him. So I think this is a much easier game to make some massive conclusions from, and also have some massive takeaways from. Whereas maybe the North London derby came almost too soon for him. He only had so much time to try to instill a different style, a different game plan, tactics. He even admitted that himself. He said, like, style really he can only go so far with, because we're towards the tail end of the season. It's all about picking up points, more or less, that more than actually, you know, style at this point. So the fact that he's now had another week to work with them, you hope that maybe we can actually see some progression and see some differences than what we would have had before.
Yeah, you'd hope to see a bit more commitment to the game plan and, you know, Spurs on the front foot a little bit more, I suppose. But, you know, to your point, what worries me is the fact that it only took Igor Tudor one game to question everyone's ambition inside the club, to question the culture and the mentality inside the club. Only one game. You know, and then also the fact that he said, oh, you know, this is my biggest job. And I mean, this guy's walked into smaller clubs with smaller resources and kept them up from relegation. Yeah, he's saying this is his biggest job. There's already little sound bites that are coming out that are starting to concern me, where basically he's walked into other clubs. He's obviously seen the fight within, the galvanization within to sort of beat it. And I think he's been a bit alarmed by what he's seen walking in at Tottenham Hotspur, that maybe none of that is there. And maybe that's what he's alluding to, it being a bigger job. But Jack, I mean, after the 4-1 home loss to Arsenal on Sunday, What's the single biggest quick fix Tudor needs to implement for the Fulham match today?
Jeez.
Just more running, maybe more,
Yeah,
better press, something like that.
I mean, he said that that's what he's going to be fixing. That's probably the easiest one to fix inside the space of a week. Me personally, I think it's more we need to get on the front foot more in terms of attacking football. Like, I think every time that we've sat back against teams like we did against Arsenal, we don't look that we're very easy to beat. We look really easy to break down. It's probably one of the most frustrating things about it is that if you are going to set up more or less with every man behind the ball, you would think that at least you're going to keep the game close. You're going to make it hard for them to be able to break you down. We're actually quite easy to break down, with every man behind the ball. It seems like every team actually is easily capable of creating chances down the sides, creating chances through the middle, having shots on goal that are pretty much unchallenged with no one even near the ball. It's really frustrating, to be honest. So I think what we need to try to get to as soon as possible is more or less a thing that we had before, under Ange and under previous managers, which was a much more attack-minded style of play. And I think that would suit these players. I think it would probably inspire a bit more confidence in them. I think maybe since Thomas Frank has gotten in charge, he kind of drained, it seemed like, maybe a bit of the confidence out of the players by being so worried about the opposition, but also just setting us up so negatively for so many games that it just seems like we've lost that confidence to be able to actually go after teams, to be honest. So I think if he can, at the end of the day, he's an interim manager. Hopefully he can do it in a short space of time. That's kind of why he's labeled as a so-called fireman. But we need him, I think, to instill some sort of attacking philosophy in these players as quickly as possible. But you are right. Just running more, working harder, I think also needs to happen. That's probably easier to do, I think, in a shorter span of time. But I think, as soon as possible, what I truly want to see is actually Spurs playing on the front foot as quickly as possible, because I think that's the only way we seem capable of winning. We've tried this sitting back behind the ball, pragmatic approach. We clearly suck at it. Like, that's the reason that we're 17th or 16th in the league at the minute. It's failed. These players don't seem to want to do it. They're also not even good at it, to be honest. So I think we need to go back to playing an attack-minded style play. Not even saying that would mean we soar to the likes of 7th or 8th in the league, but I think that could be the only way at this stage that maybe we end up surviving relegation, starting to score goals again.
And Rudolph Mayer says here, no, it is not more running, although there will be a little more of that. It must be better passing, which help with both defending and attacking. If you give the ball away, you can't be on the front foot, which I do sort of agree with what you're saying. But what I will say is, if you have more running, means the guy in possession has more options, and stuff like that. More running means you're not being played through as easy as we are, and I think a lot of it, like, don't get me wrong, we could be better in possession, but anytime we get the ball up to the forward line, we don't really have too many options, too many people bursting their bollocks, sprinting into space, and that comes with the willingness to run. So I do think there is an element of that. And look, for me, like, when you look at this squad, they just don't want to commit to any sort of game plan. They didn't really want to go full on committing to what Tudor wanted to do against Arsenal. They didn't commit to what Thomas Frank wanted to do, so they don't want to go up and press and try and be aggressive and play on the front foot, which, you need to commit and do a lot of running out of possession, which, to be able to do that. But also then, equally, the reason why we're getting ripped open, and you've seen against the likes of Arsenal, it's not the first time we've seen a goal like that where everyone's just standing around. Happened against Aston Villa as well. That there's not enough commitment and not enough people recognizing danger or wanted to break the bollocks to really get across and try and snuff it out. There is no commitment to what we are doing. And look, as much as people want to get on about passing and stuff and creating, absolutely get it. But you're never going to be able to succeed in that if you can't move around, if you don't have people wanting to support others, if you don't have people wanting to sprint around the pitch, high intensity runs and stuff like that. That's why anytime we see a Spurs player get the ball, that's why a lot of them sometimes are taking 4, 5, 6 touches, because they're waiting for people to come and support them. It's a huge problem, and support equals people running about. But I do get what you're saying, and I think once we see people fitter, running about a bit more, you will see better passing, which is my theory on that. Rudolph, Jack, just quickly, one or two more sort of opening questions for you, and then we'll head down to Dermot and Stevie. I mean, Marco Silva has had years to drill his this Fulham side, whereas Igor Tudor is essentially trying to fix the plane while it's in midair. Good reference, that. Do we have the tactical discipline to match Fulham's organisation, or are we purely relying on individual moments of magic from players like Mwani, Simmons, Solanke to sort of drag us out of this hole? And what I mean is, are we a team that can rely on tactics, structure, organisation today, or are we just where we are right now, just relying on individual moments of brilliance to sort of get us through games?
Yeah, I don't think we can out-tactic or outclass the opposition manager for this one. I think it is more just about inspiring confidence in these players, trying to also as well improve the fitness as quickly as possible, get them wanting to run more for themselves, for each other, for this team, for this club to avoid relegation. And then to a degree, building off what I said earlier, I think it's also just trying to instill any type of confidence in them to try to play more on the front foot, to try to play a bit more attacking, to try to link passes together, to be able to have a higher line, try to win the ball high up the pitch in the opposition half. Those aren't necessarily very deep tactical things. Those are just kind of simple basics of the game. And I think we need to get back to that as quickly as we can. And that doesn't involve, out tactic, battling the manager, the opposition manager, or anything like that. I think what's funny about Marco Silva is I think he's proven to probably be a much better manager than Thomas Frank, but I think if anything, he's a good barometer, a good test for Igor Tudor and these players. And that, like I said, I think his team, personally, I don't think Fulham actually have that many good players, to be honest. I think they're actually pretty bang average, if not probably on par in terms of actual quality of players. I think they're actually on par with some of the relegation candidate teams, really. But the manager has been able to lift them and get more out of the players than what they actually are, which is the sign of a good manager. But at the same time, I think they are a beatable team because they don't actually have that many quality players, to be honest. So I think we should be able to hopefully put something up against them. Whereas with Arsenal, they have a good manager, good players. They're in a great run of form. It was always going to be a tough ask. Whereas this one, I think, is a good test, a good barometer, where they're not a rollover, pushover type team, Fulham, but at the same time, I think they're in a way beatable, like a lot of teams around their sort of level, to be honest. And I think Marco Silva is a good test, really. I think he's a very good test for it. It's almost like I don't want to say this, but it's a bit like Thomas Frank's Brentford, where it's like they're nothing that amazing, but they're also they're not, any mugs either. They're a good team to sort of test yourself against in terms of Premier League standards, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Keith also says here, you go to the games and can see all over the pitch there's no movement from our players. Look, being brutally honest, it's that bad. You don't even need to be at games to see it. You can see it through the TV, to be brutally honest with you. The lack of movement and stuff like that, Keith. But, it's absolutely insane. And Mahasraja says Spurs should not press. It creates too much space between the lines because the backs don't move higher in that situation, and Spurs get picked off. 100%. I think Igor Tudor alluded to the press not being good enough against Arsenal, what he was trying to implement, and he did blame the back line for not squeezing the pitch, which is ultimately what you need to do. You need the back line to sort of move up nearly towards halfway, maybe 5 yards, but inside your own half. That then gives the midfield license to push up, and you sort of squeeze the pitch. That's the whole idea of a press. But if you're going to press and your back line is still sitting so deep, it just creates passing options all over the pitch for the opposition to get out. So it's absolutely important that we do commit to that. And Jack, last question for you on this regard. Is a trip to a tight, old-school ground like Craven Cottage the worst possible place to go when your confidence is sort of lifeless? Or is it the perfect siege mentality environment, for Igor Tudor to finally sort of get reaction today?
I mean, we don't have a good record there, but I wouldn't call it a very intimidating place to go, Craven Cottage. I think there are far worse places to go. I think the likes of Newcastle, Leeds, even going to some of our biggest rivals, Stamford Bridge, or going to the Emirates would be far more difficult places to go, really. So I wouldn't really put Craven Cottage at the, toughest places to go. I don't even think Fulham are necessarily one of the toughest teams, really. Like I said, I think they're better than us this season, but I don't think they're anything that special, to be honest. So I think this is a very, very good opportunity for us, considering as well. I mean, you would imagine that the players do look at, even though they all say that they don't, you'd imagine they had seen the result of West Ham losing to Liverpool.
Yeah.
Hopefully that gives them more motivation to go into this game hoping to get all 3 points. I don't think we're going to anyway. It'd be amazing if we actually, blew them out of the water for them, but I really doubt it. But hopefully we can scrape by with a win, and then gives them that confidence, really. And it's a good enough team where you would take some real green shoots and some real takeaways from it if you were able to pull out a win against them.
Sorry, I'm just distracted. There's a pigeon there flying around my window trying to get in.
Trying to
Maybe
get
it's Richarlison. Maybe it's Richarlison knocking on the door saying, let
Don't
me
leave the
score a
window
few
open.
goals. We never know. Faz Radfar 4-0 Spurs says a win will change a lot of things. Hope Van de Ven plays. Look, a win would lift the mood absolutely immensely. You see a lot of Spurs fans going into it a lot more of a positive attitude. I think it'll change the mood drastically within the squad. All of a sudden, you go into the next game believing you can get points. We just need to get that win. Faz Radfar, big up, my man, and I really do appreciate the support, sir. Hopefully you keep well. You go into the game today, Faz? You on the boat party? Let me know. Dermot, down to you, sir. I mean, heading into the London Derby at Craven Cottage, Fulham sitting 10th with 37 points, while Tottenham Hotspur are languishing in 16th with 29 points, just 4 points above the relegation zone. Spurs are currently the only Premier League side without a victory in 2026. A winless streak spanning 9 league matches now, drawing 4, losing 5. If Tottenham fail to win today, it will be a 10-game winless run. And the only other time we've seen that at Tottenham Hotspur was all the way back to 1994. Given the stakes, is today the moment our survival instinct finally kicks in? Or are we witnessing a historic collapse that this squad simply doesn't know how to sort of stop the rot?
You would hope for the first, what you said first there. I think today...
Sorry, I'm just going to kill a couple of pigeons. Not literally, just give me a minute. I need to sort them out.
That's a good one. Why the mice away, the cat will play, Steve. But look, I look, for me, I get Jack is right in what he's saying. It's not the most intimidating ground to go to, Craven Cottage. But Fulham are well organised. And Tudor has had a week to get it into these players that you've got to do what I want you to do. You can't just continue on playing the way you're playing. And I think if we can get 3 points today, it would be vital. I think that would give a boost in the arm to get us on for the Palace game. The next 2 games are absolutely vital for our survival, because I was watching Leeds yesterday, Leeds against City. Leeds look a very tough outfit. I know we beat them early in the season, but their Leeds are very sort of organised, and City got away with it yesterday. We've got Forest to come. We've got lots of 6-pointers coming up, and we need to start beating the teams around us. And 6 points out of these next 2 games, that more or less, I think that's survival. I think if you can get 6 points, I think that's survival. I think you're looking at 36 to probably 40 points to stay up this year. And the squad we have shouldn't be down there. But it's a case of mismanagement we've had under Thomas Frank. It's mismanagement from the board. Everything's in a sort of like going down the tubes. And these players have to take responsibility. These players have to come out today and show us what it means to wear that shirt. And we've got to have captains in there to lead by example too. You've got to have, if you're not a captain, like a Palunia, like a Mickey van der Ven, who probably will be captain, Porro probably will be playing today. You're not a captain, lead by example. Show the other players what it means to wear a Tottenham shirt. And as I said, anything less than 3 points today, I'd be really disappointed. And we need 3 points today massively.
Massively.
Right. But with responsibility comes accountability, right? And so if you have players that are not committed, that are not willing to run, that are not willing to break their asses to stay in that 11, then it's up to Igor Tudor to make some difficult decisions, right? How bad do you want it? Because whether these players like it or not, one of the first things that Igor Tudor had to do was show them the reality, and we are in a relegation scrap, right? And it's going to take every single one of these players to stay up. So how bad do you want it? And if you're not committed, and if you're not willing to run your ass off in order to stay up, you're not going to play. So with accountability, Derma, comes responsibility, and this is the one thing where Igor Tudor actually is in a position where he can actually demand change.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the press conference as well, when he says, "I won't mention relegation to my players,"
No, it's like no. You have to. You have to.
You have to. They're not babies. They're not little children that you can't tell them. No, I'm sorry. I know they probably are, Dave, but as a manager, you got to give the players, putting a league table and you slap the screen. That's where we are. Now, do you want to be there or do you want to be up there? You really make it as tense as possible. You really show it to them because they've been getting away with it for far too long. Under Ange, it was all a big family and a big hug to everyone. And yes, Ange won us a trophy. And it's all about being together and a family unit. Thomas Frank comes in, destroys what we built, destroys any momentum. And then all the players are out for themselves. So from being a tight unit where we don't care what anyone else says, we're gonna play the way we're gonna play and we're gonna stick together, to us now being an absolute family that's been torn apart and we can't get back together. Igor's got to give them the facts. He's got to tell them the truth. You're a shit. You've been playing shit. You are shit. You're in a relegation battle. If you go down, it's on you. Show me you got the bot to get out of it. But no, we can't mention that to them. Why? Why? Please tell me why we can't mention it to them. Are they going to start crying in the pre-game talks like, and are they going to call for their mammies or something?
It is an interesting
realities. Give them the stark realities. If us fans have to sit through this shit and have to see our team nearly relegated, and we know, and we turn up every week knowing if we don't win today, it's another nail in the coffin. Why can't he tell the players? Can they not accept the truth, or are they in denial? Did they need to go to rehab or something? For fuck's sake, grow a pair of balls, take responsibility, and own what you own. You're shit. You've been playing shit. Prove to us you're not shit.
The only thinking I can see behind it, Darmo, is that maybe he doesn't want to worry them or scare them, or if he delivers the reality of it, do they end up getting stage fright then at sort of going within their shell and stuff like that? And to be honest with you, I think everyone else has mentioned it outside of the club, so I think they'll be well aware regardless. But it is an interesting one on that one, why it's not really being mentioned to them. I think there needs to be a big wake up within the camp for sure. But Dermot, does the too big to go down tag still hold any weight for you, or is it time for everyone at the club to accept that we are in a genuine, desperate fight for survival? I think you're sort of alluding to that, right?
Yeah, we are in the fight. You're not too big to go down. West Ham went down with a pretty good squad as well. Newcastle went down with a pretty good squad. Leeds went down. Even Aston Villa went down. So you're not too big to go down. Yes, it's been 49 years since we were last relegated. The 50th anniversary is next year. But, these players have to realize very quickly we're in a relegation fight. There's teams down there. I've been down there before. I know know how to get out of it. And we don't. That's the problem. These players are probably built for challenging for Champions Leagues or Europa League places. And there's players down there and other teams that have been in relegation fights, managers that have been in relegation fights, know how to get out of it, know how to motivate the players with a 6-pointer. We don't. So we're not too big to go down. I don't think we will go down. I think we will be fine. But I think it'll be later on. I think it's going to go to the last game of the season or near enough the end of the season. That happened in 93, 94. When we had to go to Oldham, second last game of the season, get a result at Oldham. We won 2-0. We stayed up. If you hadn't won that, we lost to QPR the last game of the season and we would have gone down. So, we've had near misses 96, 97 with Klinsmann against Wimbledon when he scored 4 goals or 5 goals on the last day to stay up. We flirted with relegation. There's only so many times you can flirt with something before it actually happens.
And we certainly don't have that striker to score 4 or 5 goals in a game.
We don't. I don't think we have the players. I think you could say 2 or 3 players, maybe Palunia, Mickey van der Ven, maybe even Porro. But there's not many other players you can say, is he going to go into the trenches with me today? I don't know if some of that squad would.
Honestly,
it might.
Yeah.
Palunia probably would. Porro would. Mickey van der Ven would. Romero would. I think Vicario in his own way would, as goalkeeper. He would be telling the players, come on, wake up, let's get there. But I think a lot of them are probably shell-shocked. But what we're doing down here and down the bottom is totally different from fighting from the top. You have to be more streetwise. You have to be more in your game because there's teams down there know how to get out of it. And we have to be very streetwise that we don't get sucked in further. As I said, we don't get a win today or a win on Thursday. I think we're banging problems then. If we don't pick up 4 points, a point today and a win on Thursday, I think 4 points is the bare minimum.
To your point about players willing to go into their trenches for the coach, don't see a lot of them within that dressing room. You know, honestly, I think for a lot of them, the fight for this club has probably been ground out of them the last couple of seasons, and you know, I think for some of them, they realise it's easier to get out of Tottenham if we were to get relegated than we were to stay up. And that's my huge concern, you know, the fact that we don't really have anyone in that squad that's willing to go into the trenches for the manager. Maybe Moani, maybe we've seen a glimpse of that in the North London derby. But Darmo, last question to you before we get Stevie in here. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the disconnect in the squad, highlighted by a viral clip of Mickey van de Ven appearing to ignore Igor Tudor during the Arsenal game. Now, I know he's come out and said, you know, it wasn't directly at Mickey van de Ven, but at the end of the day, he's the guy with the captain's armband. He was the guy in control of the line. So, I mean, maybe he's protecting him a little bit there. But, you know, the manager also admitted that this is the biggest rescue job of his career. How much of this turnaround is actually tactical? And how much is it about Tudor managing big egos who might not have expected to be in this relegation scrap? Because I know a lot of people be sitting here talking about tactics and stuff, but I mean, we're sitting here talking about the basics, you know, just running more, being more committed and stuff like that. So how much of this is actually sort of getting into the players and the egos, and how much of it is actually down to tactics?
I don't know if anyone would agree, but I think it's 50-50. I think it's half tactical, half psychological. You've got to get these players psychologically right as well, and I think tactics play a major part in how you set up on the Sunday or a Saturday or a Monday evening for a game. But I think the other half of it actually is psychological. It's about getting into the players, massaging their egos, and trying to tell them you're the most important player in the world to me. Go and do a job for me. It's about the players buying into that as well. And if the players very quickly don't buy into what Igor's trying to do, they find them then again to Conte-ish, if you know what I mean, then the players may not buy into it. Then you can have all the tactics in the world. But if the players are not buying into what you're doing, psychologically, you're dead because the players have no trust in what you're trying to do. I keep going back to it. Under Range, there was this resilience within the squad that whatever happens, we're going to win the trophy. And since then, you had Thomas Frank coming in and lost the place very quickly because he kept talking about Arsenal. And then we've got Igor coming in. And if Igor's going to be, and I think it's right, he has to be tough. He has to be Sergeant Major in a way with these players to prove to the point that we are where we are. I think the players might come out of that very quickly too because they won't stand for it. So, you know, you can have all the tactics in the world, Dave, but if the players are not psychologically ready to fight, then you're losing half your battle.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's very funny that in sport, even I'm a massive Formula One fan, you have to be psychologically at your best if you're going into a race or qualifying.
Yeah.
These are in the battle of their lives. And if you're not psychologically with it, and if you're going into the game with the psychological of, well, I don't give a shit when the manager's going to say, I'm going to play how I want to play, then you're on a losing. You're losing all straight away.
Yeah,
because
you see.
There's nothing he had under Ange, and Ange wasn't the best manager in the world, but he had that. He had them psychologically thinking, we're going to win that trophy. We're going to win the league. And he made them believe it, and he made them believe it and feel it and own it. And they did go on and win that trophy. And when you manage it, it's like all that momentum. I'm not saying Andrew would have done brilliant this year, but you had momentum, didn't you? You had that togetherness. And I just wonder, by getting rid of Ange, I suppose you had to have the 22 league defeats. Was that the start of our problems? Was
I think
sort of going, you know what? We're not trusting another manager again.
no.
But
Look, psychology is huge at elite level sports. Doesn't matter what sport it is you look across. I think psychology is absolutely huge. But I do think half the battle is the manager managing the egos. You listen to Pochettino's recent interview, on the High Performance podcast. He said a lot of his, time at Spurs was because he had a very good relationship with the players. He understands that you've got to treat each sort of individual sort of different and stuff. And you seen on the pitch, they were willing to run through brick walls. I think, this season, Frank, notoriously, he doesn't like egos. He doesn't know how to manage them. He sort of has proven that by his sort of zero dickhead policy, which I think you can bring into a club like Brentford. But at a club like Tottenham Hotspur, the bigger the player, the more money he costs, the more self-belief he has, the more of an ego you have to manage. And I think that's Igor Tudor's biggest job. He's actually managing all them egos individually and trying to get them on the same page. And I think that's the biggest job. And I think if he does that, then you'll see the tactical shifts on the football pitch. But I think the biggest job is you start with managing the egos, you get them on side, then you'll see everything else implemented through that. Let's take a couple of comments here, and then let's get my boy Stevie involved. Faz Radfar says, for years we were told we were relegated without Kane and Son. I mean, look, I've been warning of this for a number of years now, Faz Radfar, to be honest with you. I said selling Kane was the start of the downfall. I've been warning about it for years, along with some of the other poor decisions that we've made. And look, here we are now, So it's sad, really. It's sad. And what infuriates me more is if a little fat Irish leprechaun like me can see it coming, from way off, and I'm not even employed by the football club. All I do is just sit there and read the news daily and make my assertions off the back of it. And I was no one in the football club seeing this as a real possibility, which is hugely concerning, Faz. We've got this from Ozzy Coy, says it's not about telling them they are shit. It's about Tudor telling them they are better than what they're showing and prove everyone wrong. I think that's a fair argument there. And Jason Green says VAR and the ref already earning their full tops. Absolutely spot on. They're just ironing the crest onto their tops now on that one, my man. Stevie, let's get you involved, sir. I mean, history is currently weighted heavily against us. Fulham did just beat us 2-1 at our place earlier on in the season. They've also dominated us at Craven Cottage, winning their last 3 consecutive home games against Spurs. In a relegation scrap where we are desperate for any sign of momentum, does this sort of horrific head-to-head record weigh on the player's mind, or is it the perfect sort of nothing-to-lose fixture for Igor Tudor to maybe go and finally break that curse? Because although as Spurs fans in our brain, we may go, it's only Fulham. Realistically, my whole lifetime, they've always given us a good game up there.
Yeah, it's a great question. You'd like to think that these players operate with a short memory span. When I look back at that, that fixture early in the season, it was just 2 mistakes that really kind of put us behind the 8 ball. Outside of that, these are some, these are the type of mistakes where really you can clean up and put yourself in a little bit of better position. But that being said, one of the things that I think it's been highlighted is the fact that it's Fulham. This isn't Liverpool. This isn't, this isn't Arsenal. This isn't, a side that not necessarily you should take lightly. But that being said, you're kind of coming into this thinking it's like, well, even on our day, we still have the ability to go to Craven Cottage and put 3 on the board. It's not necessarily up to Fulham. It's actually up to us, right? And one of the things that I will say is that, in that North London derby, I will say that there were some positives, right? I understand the scoreline you're kind of looking at it kind of like, well, not really, but let's understand that this team actually came out 2 guns a-blazing against Arsenal. And even when we went down, we responded within 5 minutes. And if it wasn't for a second half goal that gets chalked off for a bad call, who knows how that would have, how that match would have played out? Because at that point it would have been 2-2, and you're probably thinking that this team is going to continue on fighting. But unfortunately, it gets chalked off, and they ended up quitting. That being said, it's like you're coming into it. It's like, okay, well, cool. So you understand that this team does have fight. It does have some semblance of fight in them. And so from that standpoint, you're probably thinking even just in a small isolation that there is at least some, there is going to be at least some form of getting up for this one today. And that you're not worrying about whether or not, you're not worrying about a massive London derby fixture like Arsenal. From that standpoint, I look at this and it's like, you you would like put it this way: if they're thinking about past fixtures against Fulham, you understand that this team has a weak mentality. From like you can't come into these type of matches thinking about, well, yeah, we lost 2-1 to them early this year, or we just we're the type of team that comes into comes into Craven Cottage, and we're not necessarily that type of good team on that type of day. And it's like like there's a lot of things that you have to think about, but former fixtures against this team is the last thing you should be thinking about coming into this type of day, considering where we're at in the table and understanding that 3 points is the only thing that you should be thinking about coming into this one. It's just to me, it's a defeatist mentality if you're thinking about, well, we lost to them earlier this year, and
I think it's okay if you're Tudor to point to it and say, guys, this isn't going to be a walk in the park. History shows it's going to be a difficult fixture, so we are going to have to show some grit, some desire, some mentality, and some commitment to each other. But I don't think we should be over focused on it. I think you should look at it, guys. Today could be the day we can turn it around and go on a little run and pull ourselves out of this. I 100% agree with that. But with only a 4-point cushion, from to the bottom three. Are you looking at the table in genuine fear now, or do you believe our big game players will eventually produce enough individual magic to be able to keep us up regardless of the systems these managers are trying to employ? Because I think there'll be some out there that are holding on to that we've got some players that can just produce magic moments, in certain games to be able to keep us up.
Yeah, and I'm certainly focused on that as well too. And I don't care necessarily about the table or even the opponent. It's about putting the best 11 on the pitch in order to accomplish those wins, right? I mean, from that standpoint, one of the things that coming into that North London derby was the fact that they were at full strength and we were missing 12 first team players. And so from that standpoint, you knew it was going to be an uphill battle. At least with this match, we're getting our starting right back and getting Kevin Danso back as well too. We got Richarlison back last week as well too. So all of these pieces together are going to help with the cause. And so from that standpoint, it's going to allow Igor Tudor to be able to put this team in a much better position than he did last week. And from that standpoint, I think that's going to be a positive with this group as well too, and especially when you consider that a lot of these players are a little bit more comfortable with what they know and instead of what they don't. And so when you're playing with when you're essentially going to a match with players that really haven't played together a lot, it makes it that much more of an uphill battle. So when you get a guy like Pedro Porro back and you get a guy like Kevin Danso, it's going to make guys like Mickey Van de Ven a little bit more comfortable on that pitch as well too, because they understand exactly where they're going to be at different points of the match, right? So from that standpoint, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a trust factor moving forward, especially when some of these guys come back. And so from that standpoint, I think it's going to be a massive day today as well too, because 100%.
Yeah, look, we definitely need some individual moments of brilliance right now. That's for sure. We've got Brutiful says, "Come on, you Spurs." Kieran, good to see you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well. Says, unfortunately, Dave, most people are saying it's only Spurs. 100%. Guaranteed, get that. But this is where the manager needs to start saying this to the players. Where's your pride? Stuff like that. This is basically our team talks, and what are we going to do about it, to be fair? But Q7 also says that's such a bad truth, lol. That kind is literally the manager's team talk. Absolutely spot on there, Q7. Stevie Fraser says massive opportunity to make ground this weekend. We need to play with excitement and without fear. Not really us recently though, is it? Yeah. Without fear is the big one for me. Yeah. Steve, you're absolutely spot on. Kate and Jimbo says we cannot lose today, no matter what we have to not lose. Absolutely spot on, Kate and Jimbo. Good to see you in the house. And also Roser THFC as well. Really appreciate the support. Guys, those who are just after coming in, we've got 370 in house. Yep. If you could smash that like button. Also, there's a new thing called hype, which I believe is very important for algorithms. So if you could smash button M for us, that'd be absolutely brilliant. If you do want to show a bit of support like Faz Radfar has done, feel free to do that with with anything basically that's on your mind or that you would like to hear our opinions on and stuff like that. Of course, I put questions together. I try to represent a lot of the talking points that are generally out there, but don't get them all in. So if there's anything you genuinely hear us discuss, feel free to put that in. Or also, why not grab a channel membership? Small fee every single month. Help support myself and Jack in this channel. Or you can also gift them out to other people. But look, Hopefully Stevie's still there because I got one or two more questions for him. We've got this from Alan Leslie. Morning, guys. Expecting the players to show some professionalism and pride. Unfortunately, not sure if we will get it. I mean, look, we've been waiting all season for this to come around in that regard, Alan. Stevie, this is interesting. Only one of Fulham's last 16 goals was scored in the first half of games. The rest have all been scored in second half of games. Given our recent fragility, especially the 3-goal collapse in the second half of the North London Derby, does this highlight that we need to go for the game in the first half today and look to have a cushion going into that second half, knowing that Fulham sort of come out after half time and look to go for the game then?
Oh, 100%. Because when you look at the wins that we have posted this season, a lot of it came with first half goals. We seem to be a side that's far more comfortable defending a lead than trying to chase games, because more oftentimes than not, that never really comes to fruition. And so from that standpoint, this is something that I think all of us have been essentially screaming at the top of our lungs the entire season is starting strong, being coming out of the chutes. On the front foot and trying to actually get the game won before the halftime whistle, putting ourselves in a position where we absolutely can put some of our players in a position where we can actually succeed. And that's one of the things that I think from a Thomas Frank standpoint was one of the more disappointing things, because we never put ourselves in that position to at least be a little bit more comfortable in that second half where we're defending a 2-0 lead or something like that. We were always in that situation where we were chasing. Yeah, we were always chasing. And so from that standpoint, we got a bird's eye look at just the mentality of this team. And I think it's a different mentality defending a 2-0 lead than chasing games, and from that standpoint. And so from that standpoint, I think from Igor Tudor's standpoint is that is who do you have on your team that you can actually trust to lead that charge right out of the gate, right? For me at least, that's the question that I have. Who can you rely on to actually get that goal?
Yeah, 100%. I fully agree. I mean, we haven't had a consistent goal scorer all season long. Actually, our centre backs, one of them is suspended right now. But I think with the way Tudor said he wants to play sort of aggressive on the front foot, and the fact that Fulham have scored the majority of their goals in the second half, sort of almost gives Tudor his game plan, his pre-game speech and stuff like that to a certain degree. To go at them in the first half, it seems to be when they're most vulnerable. And let's ask the question if they can get back into a game when they're behind. I think sort of gives the game plan there. Guys, want to open up a bit of a general discussion here. We'll kick it off with Jack, and then we'll crack on, because I do want to talk about team for a bit longer today if we can. But Jack, I mean, it sounds almost impossible given our current form, but there is one outlier in the data. Tottenham have actually been better on the road this season, picking up 19 over 29 points away from home. Why do you think this group of players look more sort of lifeless in front of our own crowd than we do on the road? 19 out of 29 is a significant amount of points on the road.
I just think away from home, they don't feel like maybe the expectations are to win the game. The expectations are to stay in the game, to try to salvage something, which if you're playing like a relegation team, which we have been all season, there is, I guess, an easier mentality to lock into there if that's, the way that you're being set up. Under Thomas Frank, we were set up like a relegation side where we were set up to be difficult to beat, difficult to break down. And that can always be sometimes a bit easier achieved when you are the team away from home, where you don't have your fans there. There isn't any sort of expectations that you're going to go to their ground, dominate them, play your brand of football. It's usually just about consolidating and, trying to handle the pressure, and then sort of looking to exploit them at any point that maybe comes your way, and then just hold on to what you have. And I think that's kind of just been the MO all season really for this team. And I think that would probably explain it, really, is that we've been set up to be difficult to beat, and maybe away from home, that's just been easier for the players to adopt to. Whereas at home, you hear the crowd cheering for you. You hear them wanting you to go after teams. You hear them wanting you to play forward, to go after, the opposition and play higher up the pitch to try to dominate the ball. There's, groans and moans about us losing the ball. You wouldn't hear that as much if you're away from home. you kind of just hear the fans just kind of cheering you on no matter what. So I think there's almost I think a relaxation with the fact that when they're away from home, they can kind of just get away with just being shit, to be honest. Like they can just play terrible football, but as long as they're in the game, the away fans will still be cheering for them. And then also of course, the opposition is going to look to try to break you down and hurt you instead of the other way around. Whereas at home, if you're playing terribly, you will hear the crowd get on your back, but you're not going to hear it as much when you're away from home.
No, absolutely. Stevie, Dermo, anything you want to add to what Jack has to say there? Do you think there's any sort of other reasons to it as well while we're better on the road? Like 19 out of the 29 points this season have come on the road. That's insane.
Yeah, I think it's a pressure issue. And I think Harmless Potato was, said something in the chat about the players hating the fans. I don't necessarily think it's an issue of the players hating the fans. I just wonder whether or not these players are capable of withstanding pressure on the road. You don't have that. You don't have the constant will and the want to play a certain style. And I think from that standpoint, it's a little bit, I think the team is a little bit more free and easy, playing a little bit more loose on the road. And they're able to, they were able to do some pretty interesting things this season. And from that standpoint, when you're in front of the home crowd, you have a tendency to press. You have a tendency to be maybe a little bit too perfect, and in that situation, you end up making mistakes. And we saw this first time around with this Fulham team. One massive mistake can completely derail your entire game plan. And so, from that standpoint, we weren't able to come back into that one. Well, we're going on the road to a team like Leeds or going to a team like Everton, where we may have our road fans there, but it's not an entire stadium. And from that standpoint, you're able to execute a little bit better, a little bit more. You're a little bit more fluid. And so from that standpoint, I think that it kind of calls into question whether or not this team is actually capable of handling pressure.
Yeah, interesting. Dermo, you anything to add to the theory of why Spurs are better away from home?
I think everyone sort of said what I would have said. I just think there's less pressure on them away from home. I think it was you, Jack, that said that the fans there, that they're not on. The fans are not on them as much because you've only got 3,000-4,000 traveling fans to every away game, and the away fans, I have to say, have been pretty good. Have been brilliant this year. They have to give them a lot of credit because they've watched a lot of dross. But for 90 minutes, they do support the team. They do sing the songs. They do get behind the players.
I disagree with this. I think there's a notion around away fans are better than home fans, and I think that was painted by Thomas Frank. The away fans have called for Thomas Frank's head time and time again this season. Let's not pretend they're sitting there happy clapping for 90 minutes every game, because they're not.
Well, can I just? I was
going to. Yeah, you can. Yeah, but sorry. I'm allowed to hit back there. It's a panel show.
I wasn't. I actually hadn't finished my point. My point was, though, over the years, you can say that about any Premier League side have the best away fans. But the problem is, can the players play under that sort of pressure, either home or away? And they can't. They can't handle the pressure. So, there's some games our away fans have been brilliant and they've got us out of a hole. But the players can feed off that enthusiasm, that sort of, even at home, when we got behind them for the Arsenal game. It's about feeding off that, isn't it? And yeah, you are right when you say that they have called for Thomas Frank head, yes. But I think more than not, the away fans have been better and more noisier than we've been at home. Is that because we're playing dross at home? Yes, it is. Is that because our better performers have come away from home? Yeah, it is. So it is about the players feeding off that and taking that into the game as well, because you've got to work as one. But
I think though, I think when you look at the record though, I think Thomas Frank sort of tried to separate the fans earlier on the season. That home fans were toxic, away fans were brilliant. But, since then, away fans have booed the team. They've called for Frank to be sacked in the morning, stuff like that. And, don't get me wrong. I think where the narrative comes around is simply the away fans have had more to cheer about than the home fans. It doesn't mean they're better fans, but they've had more results to celebrate than a lot of them home fans. And by the way, them fans that go away also go to every single home game, so it's sort of like, I think there's a narrative painted around it that I do not like, that one section is better than the other. It's simply not the case for me. It's simply they've just had more to cheer about in terms of results and points they've seen this season. The majority of them have come away from home. And I think Frank sort of went down a very sort of divisive territory there, which I don't think he needed to open, to be honest. At the end of the day, whether you go to games, whether you get up, at 2, 3 a.m. to talk about Spurs and watch Spurs and stuff, we are all Spurs fans. We are all one at the end of the day. And I don't like this sort of divisive nature when it comes in around the fan base. You even see the media do it. Spurs fans are toxic, but none of them want to give off any of the stats that I've read off here today on why maybe the atmosphere is like that. To be honest with you, I think there's a certain element of pressure, of the players playing at home to a certain degree. Maybe it's to the point where maybe they're a bit fearful of the boos that are very quick to come out at halftime and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the reason why they're there is because they're not putting in committed performances at home. They're not winning games at home. And in general, going away from home, in general, in every sport, there's a lot more pressure on you going away from home than usually there is you playing at home. Usually at home, it's sort of like a pressure release to a certain degree. So,
yeah.
in that regard, I can't put it all down to pressure. I just think, generally, I just think there's a lack of mentality within the squad. I think there's a lack of cohesiveness in the squad. I think when you look at it, I think it's a squad that's divided. I'm seeing things now that I've seen under previous managers' tenures and stuff like that going on. I think the squad is nowhere near fit enough in terms of the Premier League and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of issues that are leading to what we're seeing in general this season. But anyway, anyone do you want to add before we move on?
It's almost like 0-0 is praised. If you went to halftime 0-0, that's often very praised by, like, if you're the away team, you're like, all right, we're in the game. We've played well enough to be neck and neck with the other team. Whereas if you're at home, especially let's just say in the Spurs context, if you're 0-0 with, let's say, a mid-table side at home, you would find that frustrating. You'd feel like, okay, like we need to come out the gates more in like this next half. We need to go on and win this game. But it's kind of then, a little bit more subdued if you were away from home. You would actually be more or less praising the boys or the performance for being in the game. So I just think the expectations are just very different when you're away from home versus playing at home. And it seems like the players have fed into that. And also just the way that the manager, Thomas Frank, set us up was that if we were just 1-0 up or 0-0 away from home at halftime, he would see that as a massive result and, a huge, success. Whereas it's the opposite when you're at home.
True.
When you're at home, you're expected to go after teams straight away, expected to dominate the opposition in the first half. We rarely did that with Thomas Frank. Like, there are only so many times you could say we actually ever won the first half or ever were like the team to really win the game in the first 30 minutes. So I think that's also part of it. It's just the manner in which we were playing. Almost, it was like playing away from home just suited us better with the way that we were set up, to be honest.
Yeah, and I also think that it was all, most of these points on the road were gained in the first couple of months of the season, where I think the confidence within the group was actually a little bit at a more of an all-time high. Where when we went on the road, we actually were a little bit more attack focused, and we were able to get some of those points, whether that was at City or whether that was at Ellen Road or at the Hill Dickinson or whatever the case may be. We were actually a little bit more attack minded. But when that calendar flipped to November and the games came thick and fast, we started actually getting losses. And an all-time rate. I think what ended up happening was, even when we traveled away, I think we actually reverted more into our shell a little bit more, where we became far more pragmatic, far more defensive minded, where even when we were traveling, we weren't as aggressive. And those results ended up being the same at home as they were on the road as well too. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that, in that early portion of the season, we were a little bit more confident on the road than we were at home. I think we were being far too conservative at home versus the road. And now all of a sudden that confidence, that road form, that road confidence is completely shot as well too. And so from that standpoint, I think that also has to be taken into consideration as well too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But look, let's keep it moving, guys, because I do want to get on and talk about, team selection today. I think, a brief bit of good news this week was that, Igor Tudor sort of announced that Kevin Danzo and Pedro Porro did return to training this week. It'll be interesting to see whether both are fit enough to start. And I think if they are, many fans would like to see them sort of thrown straight back in there. So, guys, let's talk about this. And we'll start with you, Jack. I mean, with Kevin Danzo finally fit, I think the common sense move is to push João Paulinho back into his natural midfield sort of destroyer role today, where we definitely have missed his sort of grit and his fight. However, Radu Dragusin has struggled immensely, with a direct error leading to a goal in every game since his return that he's been at fault for. He's been directly at fault for one goal in every single game since he returned to the side. In a relegation scrap where every point is life and death, can Igor Tudor afford to keep starting Dragusin just to sort of fill out the system? Or is it time to hold him accountable and keep Paulinho in the back line until Romero returns? Because I think Romero on his one more game in his suspension, and he returns then I think for the Palace game. So
No, he doesn't. He returns after Palace.
After Palace, sorry, my bad. So for the Liverpool game. So, I mean, where are you at with this decision today in terms of players coming back? And, with Danzo coming back, it opens the question, Dragusin or Paulinho at centre-back today?
I think Paulinho, of course, has to be in the team no matter what. I just think I just don't know what Dragusin really does that actually helps the team really win. He's such a liability in possession. He's a liability in 1v1 defending. He looks rattled. I think he makes other people feel nervous that are in the back line alongside him. I just don't see why you would play him, to be honest. I think he's had his games. He's, of course, only had one game under Igor Tudor, and the classic cliche is that a lot of managers do more or less give a lot of players a bit of a clean slate. That being said, though, Dragusin was at fault for one of the goals that we conceded against Arsenal, if not maybe more than one. I just think he's got to probably have a bit of a short leash with some of these players. If they're making mistakes that are leading to you losing games, then you can't really give them that patience to play them game in, game out, and just expect them to be able to get over, and eventually they'll start playing well. I think he does have to consider dropping Dragusin. I would personally. I just am amazed by the excuses that Dragusin has been given over the course of the last weeks, if not years, really. Even under Ange Postecoglou, people were making the case, Ange isn't getting the most out of Dragusin. I mean, I think Dragusin isn't getting the most out of himself, if you ask me, to be perfectly honest. He's a very big, tall defender, moves like an absolute tanker, has the touch of a tanker, looks rattled, looks like a guy that you can barely trust to be able to complete a pass, have a good first touch, handle any sort of awkward situation. I think he's just a walking liability, to be perfectly honest. And I think it's not even an exaggeration with what Dave said in the basis of the question. Every game that he has played since returning to the team, if you watch back all of the goals, he has definitely played a part, if not was the sole responsible person for at least one goal in every game that we've conceded since he's or every goal that we've conceded since he's come back. I'm pretty sure he has played a part in every goal we've conceded since he's returned back to the team. So I just don't know how you can tolerate that for that much longer, really, if not at all. I think he's got to be dropped, which means then you have to put Paulinho in the back line and then try to find a midfield that either includes Basuma, Sarr, Gallagher, Gray. You have options there. And with Pedro Porro coming back, that means then you don't have to force Gray out wide too. The fullback position. So,
well, we'll get into fullbacks. I want to have a conversation around Jed Spence today for sure. Look, when it comes to Radu Dragusin, I'll get on to him in a minute. I mean, Michael says here, do you see how much we miss Romero? And look, this is something I've tried to highlight. I know people, get frustrated with Romero, in terms of his sending offs and stuff like that. But, I'll point to Roy Keane in that aspect. Look at what Roy Keane at Man United used to get sent off sometimes and stuff, but ultimately a great captain and a great leader, and, a player that was missed when he wasn't on the football pitch, despite people moaning about him all the time. And I think it's the exact same with Romero. And this is why I tell people to be careful what you wish for when you say, get Romero out my club, or we should cash in on Romero this summer, because it's the same as the Harry Kane situation. Does anyone really think we're going to reinvest all that money and add some to upgrade? No, we're not. We're going to get worse, so we're going to rely on Radu Dragusin to come in and try and improve every single week. So that's why I keep telling people, be careful what you wish for when it comes to Romero.
Just want
And
to
then
also add, like, good beats. I don't think he's even defending Radu, but he's saying he looks rusty. He needs 10 games to get that sharpness. I've seen this argument a lot, right? Where they're saying, oh, he's just only come back from a massive injury. It's like, that's totally true. But we got a good sample size of him under Ange, where he played nearly 20 games in a row. He made
22,
massive
yeah,
mistakes that led to
22.
goals conceded. He looked like a worse defender than even Archie Gray, to be honest. And it's not like Archie Gray was really ripping up trees as a center back either. And the kid was also 18 at the time, playing in a very injury-riddled backline. Radu Dragusin has had his fair share of games to make himself look like a competent defender, and unfortunately he hasn't. Kevin Danzo has been rolled into the team, not game in, game out, like given a huge, run of games to be sharp or to look good. He's been able to come in for like 1 or 2 games at a time, probably coming in pretty rusty, and has actually looked like a fairly competent defender most of the time that he's come in. So if anything, I think what we should be doing is for anybody, I'm not saying Good Beats is doing this, but anybody that is giving these excuses to Radu Dragusin, like, oh, he's looked rusty, he just needs a run of games, compare him to Kevin Danzo then. Why does Kevin Danzo not need, a run of games in order to look good? That's my argument, is that how I compare him to the other backup defender. The other backup defender is light years better than him and doesn't apparently need a run of games in order to look good.
I don't want to say this, but even Ben Davies has had a better impact coming in and stepping in at times than what Radu Dragusin has. Like when it comes to Radu Dragusin, to me, I think it's excuses, and I understand why we do it. We sort of, as a fan base,
we love
in
shit
terms
defenders.
of the Big Six going for trophies, we're always the underdog, so we almost adopt that underdog mentality, And I think, but we make excuses for some of the worst players of the squad, And I keep hearing going, but the expectations on Van de Ven and Romero to Radu Dragusin shouldn't be. Your expectations should be the same on everybody within that squad. Kevin Danzo, to Jack's point, and this is who you should be repairing Radu to. Kevin Danzo comes in and hardly makes a mistake. Look at the way the guy defends. He could be out of the team for like a month or two, and then you step in and he's just so reliable. With Radu Dragusin, and to Jack's point, like, I get he's had a long injury layoff, and I think you do have to give him some sort of leeway in terms of getting back up to full sharpness, a bit of rustiness and stuff like that. But what we're seeing now is not out of character at Radu. If he had he played a run of, I think, 22 or 24 games consecutively under Ange Postecoglou. Now, if he had a good run in that and he's come back and he's making mistakes that we didn't see previous, then you could go, okay, it's down to rustiness and stuff like that. But when you're seeing the exact same errors being made that he made in the run of 24 games, you can't excuse it. It's just a continuation of what he was doing before. Like, you look at the guy, he's 6 foot odd. He's an absolute specimen. There's no doubt he's an athlete. But I question, is he in the wrong sport? He looks like a tennis player to me, to be brutally honest. The man, everything has the height of him. He does look like he should be playing at Wimbledon, as a tennis player, to be quite
He's not
frank.
good with his feet, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
You look at the guy, right? It takes him fucking 10 months to turn. By the time he turns, the next year is upon us. Out of position all of the time, gets head losses, got sent off against Karabag when he was in possession of the ball. I've never heard of a player at this level get sent off against a team like Karabag because they can't control the football. And not only that, in possession, he's an absolute liability. And for me, it's players like this that, I'm sorry to say, and I don't want to turn on the guy just yet, but if Igor Tudor keeps picking him, even though he keeps making mistakes, then, if you end up getting sacked out of this club before the end of the season, it's your own fault. At some point, as a manager, you got to go, Radu, head down and play paddle. We leave the football to us. You know what I mean? We will get out there and defend and stuff. So for me, I would even go as far as saying today, if he doesn't want to play Pauline in the back line and he wants to push him into midfield, because I think there's arguments. I think within the Tottenham team, in midfield, I think he's got the most turnovers, the most pressures and stuff in midfield. So I can understand the cost getting back in there. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in Janai Byfield today. I'd rather give a young 17-year-old his opportunity today than see Radu play out there again, knowing that he's going to cost me at some stage in this game. So that's where I'm at with Radu. That's where Jack's at. Let's see where the two boys are at. And I know some people are going to cry. I called him a tennis player. It's a bit of banter. Let's not take it too seriously.
Yeah, no, I was actually going to say rugby, but tennis works for me as well too. But here's what I will say: is that the lasting image that I have of Radu Dragusin is in that match against Karabag in last year's Europa League, where he was absolutely burned. And then instead of getting his head, he gets thrown out with a red card. And from that standpoint, that's when I was like, this dude can't handle this level. And from that standpoint, he's going to be a liability, and we've seen it. He can't. His positioning is absolutely terrible. And when he's playing on the right side of a back three, he can't handle his speed. He can't hold an edge. And from that standpoint, he consistently gets burned. And from that standpoint, again, this is something that I said earlier to Dermatron here, is like responsibility comes with accountability, and I'm 100% with you, Dave. Where it's like, we're in a position where we have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain in this situation. And I understand that we're in the midst of a relegation battle. But that being said, it's like, one of the things about young players is the fact that they play with blinders on, right? That's what I love about young players in these type of situations, because they will play hard and they will play for the badge. And one of the things that I like about the idea is the fact that you have Van de Ven still available in that back three, right? So you have a guy that at least you have somebody playing off your shoulder that you can trust in that position. Same thing with a guy like Kevin Danso. And if he's available, he's going to go right into that back three. And so from that standpoint, I would have no problem having a young player like Byfield in the lineup today, because again, these are the type of moments where young players actually come good. Because they don't know any better, and most importantly, they don't know how to play the game bad yet. And so, from that standpoint, I think that's kind of a situation where you can actually trust. And in this situation, especially with a guy like Pedro Porro playing off his other shoulder on the right side, I actually think it actually makes quite a bit of sense. But from that standpoint, one of the things that you absolutely cannot do is be in a situation where you know that you have a player that you absolutely can't trust, and there's going to be a moment where he's going to get burned, and it's going to end up, leading to like another Harry Wilson goal out of the blue. So from that standpoint, it's something that we can't afford to continue to carry a player like Radu Dragusin.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Dermot, where are you at with it? Do you think we're being harsh on Radu? Is he a player that you think we're being too mean on, or are you along the same lines where if he does want to persist with that back three, bring in young Byfield today, give him his opportunity?
Look, I agree with Radu where you all are on it, to be fair. I think Danso's the better defender, completely. And I've said it before, even on my own channel. I think when Danso's playing there, you have a bit of calmness in that midfield. He's on the same wavelength as a Mickey Van der Ven. They work better together. Look, throwing this 17-year-old kid in, look, I've got no problem with that. I really don't. I just think you've got to pick the right game to chuck him in. Do you chuck him in a game where we desperately need 3 points today? If he makes some mistakes, does that damage his confidence? For me, I put Paliunia in there. We know we need Paliunia in that midfield, but I would just play Paliunia in the back three today and try, as Jack said, try to get the midfield right. But he's going to play Dragusin, and that's our weakest point, and Fulham are going to try to exploit that. But I think you've got to take that. Tudor's got to take his ego out of the question. He's got to look at it outside looking in, and what is the best for this club? What is the best I can pick today to get 3 points? And that is playing probably Paliunia in the back three. Look, nothing against playing the 17-year-old, Dave. Really don't. And I hope he does that his start. But putting him in today, I don't think that would be a wise move either. Because
I do
he make a mistake. And then people are saying, well, why did you not pick Dragusin? And then he's open then to more criticism. Pay Paliunia in there. Drop Dragusin, never play him again. The sooner he goes and his agent goes, the better, in my view. And and then hope for Romero come back, and then the back three, if you want to play that, Romero, Danso, and Mickey Van der Ven.
I do hear what you're saying in that regard, and I would have been opposed to it in the North London derby. I just didn't think it would have been the right fixture to throw in a young centre back.
Yeah.
But, and I know people say it's not the answer, but you can't keep playing Radu Dragusin. Age, clearly, there's plenty of young players that are better than older players in the Premier League. Age is only a number at the end of the day when it comes to football. If you're good enough, you're old enough. And I'm not being funny. From them little minutes I've seen from Byfield, looks more competent in possession than what Radu Dragusin does, in my opinion. And for me, I think fortune favours those who's brave. Rather than persisting with a guy who's making a mistake that's already costing you a goal every single game, at what point do you go, well, I don't care if we're paying him 50 grand a week. I don't care if he's 22, 23 years of age. You're dropped. Byfield, you're 17. You're going in. And for me, that's where I'm at. I know Tottenham here says, I can't see Tudor using the U as a short-term manager. He won't benefit from it in the future, and it'll probably be too much risk for him. And I do understand in that regard. But if you've got senior players who don't want to do what you're asking them to do, you keep persisting with them. They're going to cost you your job. I said this underneath Thomas Frank, said it underneath Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah.
You keep persisting with these guys. I also said it under Jose and Conte.
Yeah.
You keep persisting with some of these guys, even though they're letting you down on the football pitch. It is going to cost you games of football. It's going to cost you your job.
Yep.
At some point, you have to be brave, grab a set of bollocks about you and go, you're dropped, youngster, you're in. You do that, all of a sudden, it makes a couple of other people book their ideas up because they don't want to suffer that embarrassment. It is an embarrassment to you as a senior professional footballer if you were dropped and a youngster is given an opportunity ahead of you. And that'll send shockwaves around the dressing room. I think it would be a brave call for Tudor to do, but I think it's one that a manager needs to do at Tottenham Hotspur, to be brutally honest with you. Now, if we didn't have the talent coming through, I wouldn't be sitting here calling for this. But we have had so much talent come out of this academy over the last number of years, and they've all been farmed out on loan. You're telling me Mikey Moore, currently producing at Rangers, wouldn't be a benefit to Tottenham off the bench than what young Roswell named on the bench in the North London Derby was? You're telling me Vescovic right now wouldn't be doing that better than what Dragusin is currently at centre-back? Why are all these young players still out on loan, playing first-team football, yet we won't trust them here? We want to keep putting our faith in Bissouma, Radu, players like this. I'm fucking fed up with it. At some point, if you want to create a winning culture, you have to get rid of the weak links. And that's where I'm at with it. I get it's not ideal. 100% get it is not an ideal situation. But at some point, you've got to make a change. And if that's what's available to you, you've got to use it. But we do have to let Dermot go here. So we're going to let Dermot plug his channel. Dermot, why do people need to get across to subscribe, my man?
We're on the march to 3K. Had a really good month again. I don't know why we're exploding. We are at the moment, so I'm very humbled and grateful for that. Yeah, we've got the watch along today after the whistle. Then tomorrow, player ratings, and then I don't know what we're doing during the week. With suddenly finding out there's no game next Sunday. Thanks, the Oracle up in the corner, Dave, for letting me know that. I've got time to think about what we're doing. But yeah, if you like what I have to say, join me, James, Tequila, and Rain as well over on the channel, as we just talk all things Tottenham. And yeah, I'm on my other channels as well. Ireland Do or Die, the political channel I do with Philip Brady. He does the Irish channel with me and my gaming channel as well. So yeah, the brand of Till We Die is growing, and that's the aim. So yeah, get over, like and subscribe, and do it here. And like and subscribe on Steve as well. Get him over to 500 as quickly as we possibly can. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I do apologise I have to bounce. I'm very sorry.
You're all good.
I don't like leaving this stream. Yeah, I'll see you during the week, James.
Have a good one, Tron.
See you later, Dermo.
See you later.
Bye. Have a good one.
Just on the Dragusin thing, just quickly, and you're saying bringing in the young players. I understand it's a massive risk to bring in someone like Junai Byfield, but the way Dragusin has been playing, similar to the Timo Werner situation under Ange Postecoglou, where it's just painfully obvious that this guy is stinking the bed right now. He's not good enough. You can't do any worse really at this point. You might as well just bring in a young player, give them their opportunity to see if they can do any better. It's a bit of a win-win scenario, really, to be honest. You can't lose, really. So, and that's a mistake Ange made, where he just persisted with Timo Werner and then didn't really give Mikey Moore and other players their opportunities as much as they probably deserved. And we've seen, like you said, not just Ange, other managers did the same thing. Jamie Donnelly as well had plenty of opportunities to play. He wasn't given his opportunity. It's just that I understand with a short-term manager, it's even harder, where it's you are just focused on winning games. You don't really care as much about the young players. You just want to pick whoever you can to help you win games. But to be honest, that's where you're at with Radu Dragusin. Can you guarantee that Radu Dragusin is going to win you a game? Absolutely not. So you might as well consider at least dropping him and if not even playing a youngster in his space, really. I think it's almost identical to Timo Werner under Ange Postecoglou, where he persisted with him, even though it was obvious that this guy is clearly not good enough and is not going to guarantee you winning matches.
Well, like, you look back even to Sherwood's there, right? You had Sadado, who was freshly signed from Real Madrid for 20 million, which back in the day was a huge
Villarreal.
amount.
Yeah.
And or Villarreal, and then you had Harry Kane, and he chose to stick by Harry Kane. Harry Kane went on to become the club's greatest ever goal scorer, club's top goal scorer, one of the club's greatest ever players, and that's because he stuck by him. It could have been so easy for him to keep throwing Sadado out there, but Sadado wasn't scoring goals. He couldn't hit the target, and he stuck by Harry Kane. And I think, at some point, managers have to start realizing this. I can play this guy who we spent a fortune on, is earning a massive amount, and he's cheating everybody, or I'll give a youngster who's hungry, doesn't want to make mistakes, but at least he cares when he's going on the football pitch. I think that's sort of decision you have to make as a manager sometimes. Stevie, anything else you want to add to that? And I definitely agree with AK Sheikh says here, because our loanees could feel the better 11 than our first team. I think it's starting to look like that at this point, AK Sheikhs. But anything else you want to add there? Because I do want to move on and try and talk about Jed Spence if we can.
Yeah, and I think the environment matters in this one as well, too. Last year, I think when Ange Postecoglou finally gave Archie Gray a run in his natural position, he did it at Liverpool in that environment of Anfield, and it just didn't necessarily work out. This isn't that. This is going to be an environment against a team where I think, relying on a young player is actually, it actually seems like this would be almost the right fixture to do it in an environment where the pressure isn't going to be that rampant, where you're actually giving them a little bit of a nice landing versus having to do it in a North London derby at home or on the way, or or on the road somewhere that maybe he's not experienced enough to handle that type of environment. I think today would be the best possible scenario to get his feet wet.
And sometimes as a youngster, I mean, you got to throw them in, sink or swim sometimes, I think, to a certain degree. But look, let's keep it moving, because I do want to sort of move on and talk a little bit about Jed Spence. Sorry, Jack's correcting me again. They're saying it's Valencia. So, yeah, 100%. I just know he was at Real Madrid and then ended up coming from Spain for huge money, huge reputation on that one with Sadado. But, I think that shows the benefits of sticking by a youngster sometime. But Jack, let's move on. Let's talk about Jedi Spence here. I mean, the frustration with Jed Spence is starting to reach breaking point, especially with me and you, and I do see more and more people in our chats getting more and more aggravated by Jed Spence. I mean, fans are pointing to perceived lack of intensity within his game. He loses possession cheaply and is slowing down a lot of our attacks with the amount of times he wants to hold the ball up and, the amount of touches he wants to take, rather than maybe sometimes playing one touch or first time passing and stuff like that. And it sort of is becoming the polar opposite of the brave and aggressive football Tudor sort of wants to play. I mean, as his time in the starting 11 run out, and would you give Southey's opportunity today to see if he can produce any better? Because we have seen clubs like Bournemouth find instant success by throwing in their young Brazilian Rayan, who also moved over from the Brazilian league. He was thrown straight into the deep end. And why do you think, so then on that basis, why do you think Spurs are so hesitant to give our young talent like Sousa an opportunity then, sink or swim?
Yeah, I think you have to consider putting in Sousa for this. Jed Spence is probably one of the many players that is probably very tired, is frustrated as well. You could argue maybe he's a guy whose attitude kind of tends to fluctuate too, where he is up and down. He's either full of confidence, can run really hard for the team, put in a massive effort, or he looks like he's not up for it really. And he looks like his head is just gone, at times. He's a very moody or emotional player, you could say. And then also, I'll be honest, like his one strength usually is he's an excellent 1v1 defender, can lock down players, take them out of the game. He's excellent in 1v1 defending situations and is a very reliable defender for the most part. I would say the last few games or so, that's not been the case. I think he's actually, if anything, been targeted more and has been probably, hit more than even like Archie Gray has. Like in Archie Gray, I think we're just hoping for the best, to be honest, when it's him like out on the wingback position. I don't think we hold him to the same standard as you would with Jed Spence, because we know that Jed Spence can be an amazing defender, but I think he's actually been cooked on the last few games with whatever opponent he's come up against. I mean, you could probably point that to how few posts we've seen of him putting the dog leash or pit bull leash that he does with the players, or the Jed Spence penitentiary. Like, when's the last time he used any of those types of gifs or memes or anything? So the guy's just been, he's not been at it defensively. And then you could argue the whole season, really, we've all kind of questioned, his inability to link up play and be a threat going forward, because he often makes the wrong decision, gives the ball away, can't cross really to save his life. I don't know what really Jet Spence has been providing. It's hard because I like Jet Spence, and I think he's not necessarily somebody that's been hurting us a ton this season. He's usually one of the more reliable players, but if you want to go by just recency and recency bias, you would say actually the last few games he's been one of the worst players, I would argue. I think in the North London Derby, I would make the case he might have been one of the worst players on the pitch that day. I thought he was torn apart by Bukayo Saka and by the fullback on the right side there for them. But then also in possession, the guy is allergic or seemingly has forgot how to play a first-time pass. When he has someone available to him, he, for some reason, feels the need to take 5, 6, 7 touches and then ends up all of a sudden finding himself in trouble. Then he puts his back to the defender, has to hold off the defender, then tries to roll him and try to take it past him, gets picked, gets the ball taken away from him. And then all of a sudden we're losing the ball in a very dangerous position. And normally defenders are the ones that you don't want to be losing the ball, especially in their own half. And Jet Spence was guilty of that more times than we could probably count, in that game. I think he was probably one of the most guilty players of just losing the ball totally unnecessarily when he did have options available to him. So I think he has to be considered, not necessarily to be dropped. Like if Pedro Porro is, let's say, not fully fit, I would play Jet on the right, and then I would play Sousa on the left. I think you have to go with Sousa, to be honest, for this game. Just because, again, it's similar argument to Dragusin, where recently Jet Spence, he didn't help you at all in the last game. Why would you just pick him again? He's not doing anything to help you win games at the minute. So, and you have to probably look at it with a short-term type of mentality where you can't just... Igor Tudor doesn't have the time to give guys 5, 6 game runs, and expect them to be able to turn things around. He does have to be pretty harsh with these guys, and he has to consider Sousa for that reason. Jet Spence, last thing, that is one trend that I've held my mouth shut about pretty much all season, that for some reason he does have this need and this love to take 7, 8 touches completely unnecessarily, and it slows the ball down, and he also tends to lose it. And then you're just sort of questioning, does this guy know that he can play football a bit quicker? Has he ever played a 1-2 with anybody? It seems like he has forgotten that ability to play quickly.
I think you absolutely nailed that, Jack, as well, especially when you said Tudor doesn't have time to give them 5, 6 games and get them up and running. He needs players that are willing to do it instantly. We've only got 10, 11 games left of the season. We have to start doing it now. And he has to, if one player isn't doing it, out you go, bring in the next guy, give him his opportunity. I think that's where we're at right now. When it comes to Jet Spence, don't get me wrong. I think Richarlison could learn some of that hold-up play in terms of backing into his opponent and being able to get the ball under control. But for me, where Jet Spence does it, just be smart. Turn down the line. If you're going to hold it up near the near the touchline. So at least if they get in a tackle, you're picking up a throw-in, But he doesn't. Often he's holding it, in terms of inwards mostly, and that's because he's right-footed, not left-footed, which means when they take the ball off him, it's in play. They're exposing down his side, pulling players out of position, putting that ball across, and then we're getting alive. It's just the sheer amount of touches. Even sometimes he's holding it up. He's got Mickey van der Ven sitting there waiting for the pass back, and he won't play it. And then he's just waiting for someone else to come along, and then all of a sudden he's being tag teamed and the ball's being taken off him. It is a huge source of frustration for me. Sometimes as well, he makes the decision to go and then turns back. If you've made the decision to go with the ball and there's no support, keep going and look to fucking kick it off a Fulham player ahead of you and get a throw in or something like that. Just be a little bit more intelligent with what he's doing. But he's a player that defensively, I think he's got it. And I think also going forward, the guy can play a little.
Yeah.
But I think for him, it is more so mindset. I look at Jet Spence and I think he's just a happy-go-lucky guy. This is my life and I'm just happy with it. I don't see the hunger or the desire within the guy to be the very best. And that's where I get a little bit concerned with Jet Spence. And that's where I get concerned whether we're going to see improvement. So I think he's very much a confidence player. If everything around Jet Spence is good and happy, you'll see it on the football pitch. If it's not, I think you'll see it reflected on the football pitch. But I don't see a guy that really has that hunger, that wants to go out there and be the best, despite having a lot of the attributes to be able to be a fairly reliable fullback / wingback within the game. But in possession is my main frustration with him. How many times against Arsenal was he backing into his player, holding it up, no quick passing and just losing the ball? Hugely frustrating. And on that, look, Sousa gamble defensively, 100%. I get it. But I would rather take that gamble today. Throw the kid out there and let's see if he can produce anything different to Jed Spence. Huge risk, huge gamble, but at this point, you've got nothing to lose with the amount of games we've got left. Tudor cannot continue to play players that are letting him down. But the amount of times Jed Spence holds up the ball and loses the ball, it has a knock-on effect of us going forward. Another huge frustration of mine.
Yeah.
You know, we want to spring quick counterattacks. We want to spring quick attacks on people. We've got Mawani, Simmons, players like that with a bit of pace. So you want to release that ball quickly. And he doesn't. He holds it up, allows everyone to get back, pick up the markers and stuff. And then all of a sudden, then even if he does release it, we have to play it through 11 people. The guy for me right now needs to be taken out of the team today and given Sousa a chance. Now, there is a lot of rumors on X circulating that he's not in the match day squad today. We'll see how true that is in about 10 minutes or so's time. But Stevie, anything you want to speak about on Jed Spence? I mean, you were there in the stadium at the weekend.
Yeah.
Was there a huge source of frustration shown towards Jed Spence with the amount of time he's holding it up and losing the ball and stuff?
Yeah, for me at least, yeah. I mean, he was a magnet for defenders because he doesn't push up or hold width off that left-hand side, right? It almost just seemed like every single time he touched the ball, there was a need to hold it and draw defenders to him instead of actually trying to play a 1-2 and then push up down the left-hand side and making runs. My biggest frustration with Jed Spence is the fact that there's no consistency from week to week. Yeah. There's moments where he has brilliance, but there is never consistency in the full 90. Let alone from a week-to-week basis. And it doesn't necessarily matter which side of the pitch he's on, whether he's playing his natural right-sided position. It almost seems like it's the exact same thing. And in a system where you don't have your fullbacks pushing up and your solitary defenders, I think he could probably play well. But in a moment where we absolutely need numbers forward, but we also need consistency playing balls into the box, Jed Spence just seems to go missing. And from that standpoint, we don't necessarily have the numbers where we can actually concede that type of player, right? You're going to have that consistency of playing balls, holding defenders up higher up the pitch, and it's just something that he just doesn't do. And so from that standpoint, me personally, I'll concede. It's like in 1v1 positions, like he's good at times. At times, he's very good. This was actually the time last year where he started slowing down. Whatever excuse you wanted to use, whether he had nothing left in his tank, or whether or not it was just depending on the week to week. This was the time last year where he looked absolutely dreadful. I remember that match when we went to Wolves last year, and he absolutely got cooked at the Molineux, and the next week he got cooked again, and he wasn't tracking back when it came to defensive responsibilities. And it almost feels like we're in that same situation where we have no idea what type of player we're going to get on the week-to-week basis. And so from that standpoint, I'm kind of in that same boat where it's like, okay, cool. You can use him in certain situations in that match, but for a full 90, you're going to need somebody that's going to be a little bit more consistent, especially considering when you're playing 1-2s in the mid and you need that dude to make a run down that left-hand side to at least get into 1v1 space where you can play a ball in. I just don't necessarily think he's that type of dude right now.
I think, look, the way I look at him is I think he's a good backup option to have that can play either side. But, if he wants to be a starter, he needs to start showing a hell of a lot more. So it'll be interesting to see whether he throws Sal's in there. Now, look, I did want to have a discussion around Conor Gallagher. Maybe we can do that when the lineup's out. But I do want to sort of have a conversation around the front players today, because I think it's a bit of a selection headache for Tudor. Does he go with Colin Mawani, who, he was a rare bright spark in that North London derby, bagging a goal, could have had a second if the referee, wasn't cheating, same as Gabriel, and he did get the nod over Dominic Solanke, which, I think a lot of people were maybe bemused by ahead of the game. Now, look, I know some people think, he had a sore throat. That's not a grounds for a player to not start a game. It simply isn't, for me. It's a sore throat at the end of the day. You can still get out there and play. Jack, against the Fulham side that sits deep, stays compact, do you stick with Moani's mobility and sort of big game confidence, and look to build off the back of that North London derby goal? Or is this game where we sort of desperately need Solanke's physical presence in the box? Or, with the lack of sort of wingers available, should Tudor simply start them both up front today?
Yeah, why not both? I think you have to play Kolomouani. I think just what Kolomouani needs is just some help this game. I mean, he was single-handedly carrying us in terms of going forward the last game against Arsenal. So you have to play him while he has any bit of confidence in his legs right now, and then just give him some support, give him some help. Have someone like Dominic Solanke next to him or Matisse Tell, whoever it really is. But he needed another striker, another forward alongside him to play off of and to be able to work with. I think you have to play Kolomouani for this game. And we need someone who can score goals. Not saying he's going to be able to do it week in, week out for us. But let's be honest, the only people that have been scoring for us this season have been our defenders or Joao Palhinha, really. So whichever forward at the minute is scoring goals, you have to put them in the game. I would absolutely have him play alongside Dominic Solanke. And I think what Solanke will bring is someone that can actually hold up the ball, someone that you can reliably hit the ball into, that can drop deep, kind of pick up the ball between the lines of the midfield and the back line, and then be able to hold on to it and link up with others. And then Kolomouani can have the pace to be able to stretch the back line, run in behind them, and hopefully someone like the Solanke or others can try to feed him in. So I think he's a must start, Kolomouani. It's just preferably, I think you have to have someone play alongside him, really, or someone that can play close enough to him for him to be able to work off of. I kind of felt for him because in the Arsenal game, it felt like there was no one there for him to be able to play off. Even like Xavi Simons was just not the right player to play as like a second striker next to him. I think you would you'd be better off with Solanke or Tell or whoever next to him.
Frank done that at times as well. For me, just
Isolated.
play Solanke and Moani up front together. You look at the North London derby, we got sucked into playing long ball.
Yeah.
Hit Solanke, Moani runs in behind, or Moani drops short to pick up that ball that Solanke's holding up. With Xavi Simons, just the physicality or that sheer vocal point, it's not there. You need to play him in that cam role and let two guys up front, because I think both ways. I think one, it helps you on the press because you've got two committed players to it that will go and do a lot of running, which means you can occupy both centre backs, which means then you're squeezing the ball out wide, which then means you can go and sort of press as a team to lock them in, or you're forcing the ball back to the goalkeeper. He's punting it long, we turn it over and we go at them again. But also in possession, it's clear that we are going to rely on Pedro Porro heavily down this right-hand side, with his return in terms of getting crosses into the box. Then you're getting two players in there that at least can get after the ball. Dom Solanke can go and look to challenge for it, and Moani can look to pick up anything that comes across in behind him and stuff like that, where Xavi Simons is a guy that more likes to sit around the edge of the box, really, than actually get in there. So you're actually getting more of a presence in the box. So when you're swinging these balls in, you have more chance of getting on the end of them rather than just hitting the one focal point in the box, which then means nearly every cross has to be perfect. And I'm sorry, but we don't have David Beckham out there fucking crossing the ball. So, for me, I think you have to go with the two strikers up front because it gives you that vocal point. I think Nuno has done it for West Ham, and it's sort of, in games, and it's changed their fortunes a little bit in terms of having more of a presence going forward and stuff. And I just think it's something that we should be looking at here today. The lineup is out. Let's get into it. We've got Vicario, it looks like, in goals. So, Jack, I'll let you go through this.
Vicario, Dragusin, Palhinha, and Van de Ven potentially as a back line with Gray. I'm not seeing Jet Spence. So Gray and Pedro Porro. Looks like Jet Spence.
Gray at left wing back, maybe?
I don't even see Jet Spence in the lineup, to be honest.
No, he's out of the squad.
So it must be, maybe it was the other way around, or like maybe just maybe not totally true information that Sousa makes the squad, but not Jet Spence. Then Basuma's in midfield with Xavi and Gallagher. And then up top, we have Kolomouani and Solanke, it looks like.
Yeah, so we'll run through that again.
3-5-2, I think, if I'm going to guess. I think it's going to be Dragusin, Palhinha, and Van de Ven as your center backs, with Gray and Porro as your full backs. And then we'll
Gray
have
on the left,
Yeah, Gray probably on the left, you would assume, and then Basuma and Gallagher in midfield together with, you would think, Xavi Simons probably playing just slightly in front of them or with them, and then up top, it's probably going to be a front two of Kolomwani and Solanke.
So, I think bar the two, I think bar Danzo, I think we've had a good pretty stab at that lineup in our predicted lineup, Jack, to be fair. I think, to a certain degree. And we got our wish of Mwani and Solanke playing up top together today. So, hopefully we'll look a bit more potent going forward. On the bench, then we do have Kinski and Austin, 2 goalkeepers. Danzo on the bench, Richarlison, Tell, Sarr, Souza, Olasesi, and Roswell completes the bench. So there is your starting lineup, as Jack called it, a 3-5-2. And with Archie Gray looking like he's going to play a left wing back, which I think is interesting. We've also got Charmeleon Eyes says Dragusin starting. Get ready for an L, boys. I mean, look, I won't lie to you, sir. It is a huge frustration of mine, the fact that we keep persisting with these guys. If it is the case he's come back from injury and he's rusty, then don't put him out there if he's costing you games of football. It's that simple. Like, I can get if a player is showing it before and a manager wants to stick through with him through a rough patch, I get it. But this guy hasn't been good since we signed him. Compare him to Kevin Danzo. Now look, it's probably a case today that the game has probably just come a little bit too soon for Danzo, that he's probably not fit enough to start.
Yeah.
But, I'd argue this is where the man just needs to start being brave and give someone like Byfield an opportunity or something like that. But look, at the end of the day, he's selected now. Let's hope that this guy can limit the amount of mistakes he's made in recent games, and hopefully, we can somewhat go towards keeping a clean sheet and scoring goals. Now, what I will say, he's got Raul Jimenez up against him today, and if I'm Raul Jimenez, I'm pinpointing, Dragusin as a guy I'm gonna get joy off, just like Gyökeres did. I mean, Gyökeres hasn't scored for how long, and then all of a sudden he looks like fucking prime R9, up against Radu Dragusin. So he's got to have a big game today in that regard. Charmeleon Eyes. Jack, anything you want to say to him?
No, it could be the case that just Kevin Danzo isn't ready. I can understand that, but I still would have found a way around it then. I would have tried to then play Archie Gray in the back line and then put Souza on the left back position. I would have given Junai Byfield this opportunity. I don't know why Junai Byfield's not even in the lineup, to be perfectly honest. I would have found a way around, this Dragusin situation. But it could be the case that, Kevin Danzo, maybe he's half fit, really, where he's not as fit as maybe Pedro Porro is to come into this game. It's also even concerning that Jet Spence isn't even in the lineup for this one. Maybe he's another potential injury situation there. But I'm not going to be so downhearted about Dragusin, even though I don't rate the guy, even though I do think he is a liability. I'm not going to just then write off the game and say, that means we lose. Like, I'm not going to take that perspective. I don't ever want to look at it that way, but I am going to voice my opinion about why I don't think he's good enough at the end of the day.
Yeah, fair. Big up, Charmeleon Eyes. Really appreciate the support. Very, very kind of you, sir. Gallagher's an interesting one, though, Stevie, over, the likes of Papa Matasar. Now, look, it's in my opinion, looking at Gallagher, I think he was off the pace in the North London Derby. I think it showed. I think he was a yard off the pace all game, to be brutally honest with you. I think many Spurs fans have actually been underwhelmed with his impact. To me, he just simply doesn't look fit, actually, to be quite brutally honest with you. He looks way off the pace in terms of fitness. Why do you think he's been selected here again today over the likes of, Papa Matasar, who, let's be brutally honest, didn't really have a good North London derby either, but I think he's fitter than Gallagher and can get around the pitch more.
I think it's potentially for defensive purposes, especially when you consider what how Fulham is going to line up in that midfield. Maybe it's a little bit more geared toward the defensive side. But that being said, it's going to be interesting, this lineup and how it's going to be deployed, because one of the things that I don't see, and this is something where maybe Papstar would have been a little bit better, is the link up play through the middle of the park. And it's, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that is going to work itself out today between Basuma, Gallagher, and Xavi, because as of right now, it looks like this is a one-dimensional lineup where you like, I have a feeling we're going to see that ball played down that right-hand side as much as possible, because of the limits that Archie Gray is going to have on the left-hand side. And so from that standpoint, you probably would expect to see maybe more progressive passing in that midfield just to ease some pressure off of Pedro Porro. down that right-hand side. And from that standpoint, that's where, that's to me is where it doesn't necessarily make sense to have a Conor Gallagher starting, especially if you're playing a Yves Bissouma, who is probably going to be playing that, that traditional holding midfield role, right? So how are you going to deploy Gallagher, and how is that going to look with Xavi in central areas, right? Is that going to be something that's a little bit better than a guy like Pape Sarr? I don't know. But that being said, it's like, I do like the fact that Randall Kolomowani and Solanke are playing up top together. That is me personally, I think that's going to it's going to prove to pay dividends today, having one work off the other, because you would probably assume that defenders are probably going to be keyed in on Solanke, which could allow Kolomowani enough space to be that much more dangerous. But I guess the question is how's that ball going to get played into either of them? That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, 100%. Just quickly, the Pigeons are back again.Maybe it's literally Richarlison sending me a signal, Dave, and coming off the bench to score one today. But no, look, and I think, Sully sort of as sort of, highlighted a certain point as well. He says, we are literally reliant on Porro slinging the ball into the box. One ray of hope, no Anderson for Fulham, so this will help. I think absolutely spot on. I think looking at that lineup, I think Archie Gray would probably come up against Harry Wilson. I think his whole job is just simply don't allow him to shoot from distance or swing balls into the box, stay tight to him. So I think, we're not really going to see too much coming down that side. So we are going to be heavily reliant on Pedro Porro sort of swinging in the ball into the box from different angles. My only hope is that if we can find the ball to Xavi Simons' feet, you should have Solanke as a 1-2 option, or Marwani in behind, which I think hopefully we will see us unlock Fulham with a bit of craft and creativity. That's my hope, Sully. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that is another avenue we have towards goal today if we can make it work. I want to thank Hollywood Hotspur as well for renewing his channel membership here. Really do appreciate the support on that, my man. Very, very kind of you, sir. Really do appreciate the support. But Stevie, we have put your channel link in here for you, sir. By the way, Hollywood, how are you keeping, my man? Let me know how you are keeping. But we have put your channel link in here. Why do people need to get over and subscribe?
That's a great question. Why do people need to get over to subscribe? Because I'm an awesome channel. That's why. So, if you, I'm just messing with you guys. But this weekend, usually I do a live stream, but because of the jet lag, it's kind of taken every ounce of energy out of me. And so I'm going to take the rest of this weekend off. And then, of course, the channel ramps up again this upcoming Tuesday. So next week, obviously, the all the pre-match shows that I do, and of course with the Hotspur live stream that'll kick off this upcoming weekend after the Crystal Palace match as well too. So there's going to be plenty of content coming up this upcoming week. So from that standpoint, man, head over and hit the like and subscribe. I will say that the traffic on the channel has ramped up over the course of the last couple of months, and I do want to thank those that have subscribed and those that will subscribe. I appreciate it.
No, I really do. And, it just goes to show people do enjoy your contributions to what we're doing here. So, guys, if you have enjoyed Stevie's contribution and you think he's worth a listen to, make sure you do get over there, smash that subscribe button, and give him a little follow. Every little helps every Spurs fan at the end of the day. But, guys, that is it from us here on the pre-match build-up. J-Max says, Davey, lad, just put up a goal at your window and it will go away. Honestly, I was thinking, I've got two options. I could either whip out a sliced pan and feed them, or I can, get hold of a pellet gun and shoot them, or shoot the window every time they come near, because they are actually quite distracting. I just hope, actually, I better not do that. We don't condone animal violence here, but I need to do something to get them away from my window. They're actually,
use a moose blower. Use a moose blower. Use a moose blower.
But maybe it is Richarlison, just trying to send through some good vibes, just sort of saying, look, guys, don't worry. I scored a goal that'll keep us up in the Premier League. We'll wait and see. But in all seriousness, guys, I want to say a massive thank you to all of you at home tuning in from across the world at different times, different locations. I find it absolutely fascinating, even to this day, the amount of people from all over the world that want to tune in and listen and talk with us and chat with us and be with us in the build-up to the game. So a massive thank you to all you guys. Look, it's already enough for everybody, so everyone make sure you go and get a bit of breakfast or lunch, whatever time it is for you guys, maybe even a beer for some of you guys over the other side of the world, maybe, if it's late enough. But make sure then you get back here for the watch along. And look, it's not going to be an easy day, boys. Ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be a tough game. We haven't won in our last 3 attempts at Craven Cottage. We are in a bad run of form. But look, let's all enjoy the game together. Hopefully the power of the people can come through today and we can get over the line and pull ourselves away from that relegation zone so that we can all just relax a little bit. So, guys, we'll see you back here in half an hour time for the big fucking game today. Come on, you Spurs. Let's bloody go. It's a London derby. Let's go for 3 points. See you soon.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.